friends, and welcome to Beyond the Veil. Today, we have a really special guest. His name is David Michael Latt, and he's the co-founder and CEO of The Asylum. Now, for those of you who don't know, if you're a horror fan watching this channel, you definitely know The Asylum. But it is one of Hollywood's most prolific independent film studios. Since its inception in 1997, The Asylum has released over 500 films and built a library of more than 300 original productions, including the Sharknado franchise, Netflix Black Summer, and Sci-Fi's Z Nation. Under Latt's leadership, the studio has developed a high-output production model, delivering a feature film, I believe it's 2 features a month or about that, while maintaining a remarkable track record, never producing a film that has lost money, which is highly impressive. With a career spanning decades, Latt has overseen the development and physical production, again, of over 350 films and 3 multi-season television series. And beyond filmmaking, Latt is a sought-after industry speaker, sharing insights at institutions such as UCLA, USC, AFI, LMU. It could go on, and it is such a pleasure, David, to have you on Beyond the Veil.
Well, thanks for having me. That's quite an introduction. I'll get the real David Latt, so excuse me.
Yeah. And did I mention that he has a great sense of humor too? If you ever see the email exchanges, you'll know what I'm talking about. Now,
well, I wrote that part to make you say that about the humor. I appreciate that.
Yes, and the check is in the mail, so hopefully it clears, because if not, I'll just have to edit this part out, David. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's all good.
So
it's great to be.
It's awesome, and thank you so much, because I mean, a guest of your stature, it's not always easy to get on a show like this, so I really do appreciate it, all kidding aside. Now, you know what, the Asylum, you know, you've built such a reputation with Asylum and the movies. I mean, I think you can go on any streaming service and see one of your films some way or another. Did you ever imagine in 1997 that Asylum would become a massive cult phenomenon?
We only did it to be on your podcast. That was the end game, and so
yes.
We've achieved it. We're done.
That's it.
But to answer your question, you know, the secret to what we do is that we really have no game plan, and so the short answer is no. We did not know where we were going to end up. I think we kind of took one day at a time approach, and just when things arrived to our attention, you know, we had 3 partners. I was one of them, and we had one partner that kind of found all the opportunities, and I kind of did all the work to facilitate all those opportunities. So we were so busy from day one doing a lot of little things that you know, there was never really like, okay, within 2 years we're going to do this, within 4 years we're going to do this. We kind of just let the waves kind of hit us and take us where they wanted to take us. So I don't think anybody in this industry thinks there's longevity. The production companies, studios, etc., kind of ebb and flow and go out of business pretty quickly. So the fact that we've been around for almost 30 years surprises a lot of people, and surprises us significantly on a day-to-day basis, that we could still go to work and still make movies and still do this stuff, and don't know how that really happened, what kind of deal with the devil we made in the frantic beginnings of the Asylum. But someone was sacrificed, some virgin somewhere, in order to make this work. But no, there was really we're very unambitious, and very you know, we just like to make movies. So it was just one of those, let's go make some movies. And my mom could make the curtains, and your dad could, you know, drive us a set kind of thing. And that's how we started, and that's kind of how we still are in a lot of ways.
Well, I can tell by just you speaking that you have that passion for filmmaking. And you see a lot of, let's say, Hollywood films, they could have $100 million budget, and they're not as successful. What do you think speaks to your audience in regards to your films? Because again, the budgets are probably pretty modest. I mean, you're churning them out very quickly. So, what do you think is the secret sauce where your fans are rabid about the content, yet you could have, let's say, another film have a gigantic budget and they just don't hit that audience?
Well, I think we throw so much against the wall that the ones that stick, and studios, their appetite, is maybe 7 movies a year at the most, and they'll acquire the others. And I don't even know if they're doing 7 movies anymore. So it's and their stakes are so high. It has to hit a threshold of $1 billion. If it made like a $500 million, for the next Mission Impossible movie, it is a dismal failure. Tom Cruise will, cry in shame and never go to Hollywood again. But for us, if it makes $1.50, we're singing and dancing. So the pressure of doing the bigger shows aren't, we don't have that kind of thing. And I'll also say that we make movies that we like to see. And I know the reputation is bad and cheap and cheesy and blah blah blah, and that's not necessarily a movie that we like to make. But we always try and go into these movies with a enjoyment of the genre, and try to really hit what we can while making this movie the best that we can within the limitations that we have. So there's a lot of creative thought going into how to make a film in a very short time, and the limited resources that we have that a big studio can't do, because their solution is throw millions of dollars at it and spend another 3 months on it, and make it work. We're under the pressures of getting these things out as quickly as possible, and so we have very limited resources, time, et cetera, and that kind of really gives the filmmaker and everybody involved creative license to be kind of nuts and crazy and have fun and push the boundaries a little bit more, rather than do market research and audience tests and what works, what doesn't work. We're not really beholden to that, because we're just trying to make a really fun movie to watch. There's also a different kind of movie that we make. We don't make Hollywood movies. We make genre films, which, one can argue that Hollywood should be making those kind of films too. But so we apply different rules to these movies, which I find a lot more enjoyable as an audience member, which is, we make genre films, which means we are going to hit the genre pretty damn hard, be it a monster movie, a Western, Christmas movie, doesn't really matter. They're all genre, and we have a very, very specific structure. If you're really a fan of the Asylum, then you're going to be very familiar with the structure of how we make a film, and you're not going to be disappointed. You're going to be watching maybe because it's a train wreck kind of thing, or you're going to watch because it's just mindless fun, and it's a lot. There's a lot of enjoyment in what you're watching, and just having a great time watching it.
I think the internet has definitely changed the game, and especially with streaming. And if you go on YouTube, you'll see a lot of channels dedicated to so bad it's good type of films, and there's a real love for it. So how would you say that streaming has changed Asylum's reputation and business model? Because I know in '97, usually you would try to get stuff on DVD, or you were trying to get things, movies into theater. But now the world is truly flat, and you can reach more of your fans in a direct way. So do you see Asylum thriving in that? And that's where sometimes those Hollywood studios might not have that same leverage and fan base that you do online?
Well, I think we're a little bit old school in that if it's not goods like a DVD or a CD or whatever, then you're pirating the film, and there was that kind of mentality that we had to kind of get over. So my gut feeling when you talk about streaming and whatnot is like, well, it just makes it more available, bigger audience, but also lends to a lot of people downloading stuff for free. It happens, but the reach is great, and yes, we're the difference also in what we do in our studio is that we're very flexible, very nimble, and really try and change with what is happening out there in the marketplace faster than a big monolith company like a Paramount or a Universal could do. So we're constantly kind of changing and constantly trying to figure this puzzle out. And every time we figure something out, then the studios kind of move in about 2 years later and take over and kick us out, and we have to find something else to do. But streaming is definitely where it's at right now, and we're thriving in that space. We have a lot of fast channels out there. We have YouTube channels. We have just places where people could see our content, and we have the Asylum movie channel, it's been it's fun to see it change, and it's still going through changes. And I mean, we hit these pieces where you go from hard goods like a VHS DVD to that suddenly collapses, and what do you do next? And I think we're doing the same thing with AI. Is not going to change the model of distribution, but it will kind of change the conversation of how to get to the end user in a different way. So I think we're going to have, well, we are having those conversations on how we get the content out with this new emerging technology in a lot of ways. That's kind of the next thing to be looking at, and not just as a creator of visual effects or replacing people's voices or doing things that we have not done yet. I mean, so I don't need to hear from people saying that we're stealing content through AI. We haven't done it, but it's something that definitely I could tell you that we are looking at all these things because of all just the technology's moving so fast, and we would love to be a part of it.
The genie's out of the bottle when it comes to AI,
Yeah.
so there's no turning back. And I also wonder how that affects screenwriting, how it affects, again, the productions, having AI voices. I mean, it's only going to get better, but I still feel, at least at this point with AI, that you can tell if AI has written a script or, you're using AI visuals for a film. But kind of backtracking a bit, I find it so impressive that you're doing roughly 2 films a month. How does a production start? Now, I know that seems like a very simple question. It's loaded because there's a lot to it, but do you just write a script and say, hey guys, let's just make a film about this script? Or do you
No,
have a screenwriter in-house? What do you do? I mean,
so it's to go back to, we've never lost money in the films we make. It's a real simple formula, because we're a studio, and that means that we're production and distribution for the most part. In real simple terms, we have a whole department that pre-sells these movies internationally and have for decades. And so if our buyer in Japan wants to have a movie about sharks swarming around in a tornado, we're going to develop that in-house and go see if other territories want it, and then once we get enough people to the table that will cover the cost of whatever that production is, then I get the green light to go make it, and I'm told you have to make it for this amount. If I make it for this amount, we've lost money. And so my challenge is to make sure that we don't make the films for this amount, for the higher amount. And so it's one of those things that just keeps the Asylum going. I don't know if I've answered that question.
No, you are. It's funny because I'm laughing because the next question I was going to say is, did you come up with the concept of Sharknado? It's part of the lexicon now, especially that, it's so out of the ordinary, but there's a lot of really fun things about it. So were you the person who came up with it, or did somebody say, hey, we're looking?
It's all me. It's all me. But I just to kind of wrap around about, to finish up, because there is a part to that other question, which is that because of the way that model works, we don't take pitches. You can tell us you have the best script in the world, or I could wake up and go, hey, I have a great idea. It's a cowboy drama musical, black and white. It doesn't matter, because our buyers dictate what we produce. So we kind of backward engineer it. And so it's easier for me. I don't have to tell my friends we're not making their movies because their script sucks. We're just not making the movies because we can't get our buyers need to come to us and tell us what they want. So there's that part of it. Okay, so to answer your question about Sharknado, Uh, well, you know, Sharknado came about because we had a very long relationship with Sci-Fi, and we had produced many, many movies for Sci-Fi. Probably by that point, about 30 or 40, and we're having dinner with the execs there, and I think at an AFM, not an AFM, Comic-Con perhaps, and they said, "What's next?" As well, we're developing this story, and it happens to be from Japan, of sharks. Of a big storm happening at the coast of Los Angeles, in the Pacific coast, and a big tornado comes in, swoops up all these sharks, and dumps them onto LA. And they started laughing. They said, "Oh my gosh, that's, you know, we did this film Leprechauns in the Hood, or one of the Leprechaun movies a couple years ago, and the guy who wrote it wrote a line in there saying, hey, you know, there's a big Sharknado happening in the other town and killed a lot of people and whatnot." It was a throwaway line, and it was a silly line, but they loved the name Sharknado. So they said, "Look, we couldn't find a plot that works, but that plot that you're talking about really works. So if we jump in and make this as a Sci-Fi original, our only ask is that you call it Sharknado." And we're thinking, well, that's the dumbest title ever. But if they wanted to jump in and do something called Sharknado, that just meant that our budgets probably tripled at that point. And we love the guys over at Sci-Fi, and certainly would always want to do business with them. So we said, of course, we're doing it. In the back of our minds, we were going to call it Dark Skies, which is what we'd sold to the Japanese, and that's how it would be internationally. But just a fun little anecdotal story is that when we started pitching it around to get directors involved, no one wanted to touch a film called Sharknado. They thought that was a terrible title. It was a B movie. It will never work. It'll destroy people's careers. Because remember, they gave us a lot more money so we can go to bigger directors. Mm-hmm. And so, and no one wanted it. But we kept pushing this one guy that I've known at that point for like 20 years, and going, he's the guy. And they're like, well, he's a horror director. He just does horror films, and he's, you know, we don't know how he is with action. So we're not convinced to do it. But at a certain point, they said, okay, go ask. So I had gone to Anthony and said, hey, look, we're doing this film. I told him what it was, and it's called Sharknado. And he goes, huh, interesting. Because a few years ago, I wrote a script, Leprechauns in the Hood or whatever it was. And I used that term when we wrote that thing of there's a Sharknado in the other town. That's my name.
Oh,
and I said, well, guess what? Now, Anthony is like the nicest guy in the world. He would never sue or do anything like that. And he never exploited it, and never really put any pressure to say, if I don't direct, you know, I'm going to go after you. That's not in his DNA. So we pitched Anthony, and Sci-Fi at first said no again. He's available, but he's, you know, but we still want you to look further. We went looking further, but in the meantime, Anthony was doing all these storyboards and whatnot. And at a certain point, we just said, we need to get a director, and Anthony's the guy. And in fact, he wrote the name Sharknado. He's the perfect guy for the job. And we were right, and they admit they were wrong, and Sharknado became kind of history.
Claudia, move!
So, and Anthony ended up, you know, directing all the 6 movies, and was very involved in every part of, you know, every show. So it was a great experience all the way around.
Well, he coined the concept. So at that point, it's almost like he has to do it. It was just destiny. And 6 movies later, has there ever been another pitch that a client has given you that they say, we really want this movie, but it was really odd and it just never was made?
There have been moments where a buyer would say, this is what we want, and then we kind of shop it around, and then we don't get the interest, so we can't make it. It's not necessarily because it's more outrageous or whatever, it's maybe the genre's not right, you know. So I don't think there's nothing comes to mind as far as, you know, a genre that we don't touch or just completely destroy. we'll pretty much do anything except for comedy or drama. Those are the two that we stay away from. The bigger studios make dramas with really big stars, and if you want someone to watch your movie, at the end of the day, a genre like that needs a big star. So, and we can't afford that, so we stay away from it. If we had, a big star that wants to do a drama, we'll make it. A couple came across our desks and we were very, very close because it's like, okay, well, this is a big enough star and we could pre-sell it and it makes sense. But at the end of the day, it didn't happen because no one wants to see a drama. Who wants to see that? So, and then comedy doesn't translate really internationally. So yeah, these are all sales decisions, but everything that we do is a sales decision on that side. When I say that side, my partner side handles all the sales and whatnot. And I try and make the movies and make them as entertaining as possible.
Horror, you don't need, like you say, you don't need that star because horror in and of itself is the star of the film. So you can have, I just thought of when you mentioned about romance and dramas, I thought of what George Carlin once said. He goes, oh, if there's a romance movie playing in the theater, I will be next door playing pinball or something to that effect. And I really think that's how a lot of people, there's obviously an audience for that, but I feel like if I was going to make a film and I'm trying to bank on it, I would do something like a horror film, or I imagine, let's say if I have a limited budget, I'd probably do a found footage horror film. Now, those seem like, you could literally just take your phone out and start filming one.
We just finished one a few months ago that was released. Of course, I can't remember what it is. Maybe I could, something will jog my memory, but Heretics. It was a mockbuster on Heretics. So, I do like them because A, I think they're fun to watch, and B, they're inexpensive to produce. There is that, so we keep things real tight. But unfortunately, our buyers don't particularly like it. It's one thing when you have $100 million and you do Cloverfield or whatever that looks found footage, but you have such a big studio push behind you. It's another when you have a company like ours do something that looks low budget, because it is low budget, and then people just think, oh, you're just doing that to be cheap and low budget. And so it's, I think the one thing that we have going for our movies that you never really can tell, and a lot, I say this very biased, but how inexpensive our films are, because I think we put it all on the screen and we have a lot of tricks to make it look bigger budget. But the found footage, you can't do that. And the found footage is always going to look like an iPhone, and will always, oh, it's the Asylum, or it's a low budget company. This is a cheapy movie. And therefore, because of that perception, buyers that would buy a film for X amount of money are going to buy it for a lot less, even if it costs the same amount. So we kind of stay away from it unless our buyers really want one. And it happens from time to time, like it just did with Heretics.
Wow, so it's almost like a double-edged sword. You can still put the same amount of resources in, but because they know other people can make something maybe similar, they're going to pay less for it.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy. And same with the stars too. It's like it's a brutal business, but it's they don't, a lot of our buyers don't care about putting a name in the movies, because it doesn't move the needle unless you have a huge name. Where it comes into play is really when you're scrolling and reading something on Tubi or Roku or wherever you're gonna, Vudu, and you read, oh, Eric Roberts is in it, and you know who Eric Roberts is, or you don't, but for those who do, go, okay, Eric Roberts is in this movie, I'm gonna watch it. But that's kind of it. Outside of that, there's no real value on the star side, again, unless they're really big. Really big.
You find that you use a lot of the same actors in the films?
Yeah. There have been, when we did our 25th anniversary film, it was Armageddon. It was very funny. If you want to, if we ever said we made a comedy, it's probably that one, even though it's very serious sci-fi. But one of the things I wanted to fill it up with, because it was our 25th anniversary movie, were people that have been in a lot of our movies. And so it was fun to go back and count them. And I think the most, someone was in was like 35 movies, and we had a bunch in the 20s, people have been like at least in 20. And I wanted to get those people inside that movie, those were available, so that even if they haven't been in a film of ours in 15, 20 years, but it was, so yeah, a lot of the actors are doing a lot of our movies, and it's fun to see them. It's fun to see them grow. It's fun to see them, move on to other things too, and get a career in this business, and that's always great.
Well, there's that satisfaction that you gave somebody that shot and they just took it and ran with it. When you started making films with the Asylum, was there one actor that, let's say, you remember as a kid or growing up that you really liked that you were able to put into a film? Like maybe an actor that you were a fan of previously that you were able to give a shot to?
That's a really interesting question because, when we do these it's like initially when we were doing these movies, it was it was always fun to try and find actors that we wanted to chase down and put in, that we've always, like Lance Hendrickson.
The name's Silver. Long John Silver. Captain Long John Silver.
Oh my God, that was big deal. And there's been a lot of those kind of people. And Sharknado blew the lid off that because we just went crazy trying to just get all of these people that meant something to us. Neil deGrasse Tyson and I mean, from everybody. I mean, sports figures, politicians, and actors and whatnot. And because we had about, by the end of the number 6, I think we had almost 90 cameos in the movie. That's a lot of cameos.
Oh, that, yeah, certainly.
And we're still finding, we just did a film with John Lovitz a couple of years ago. I'm like, that was awesome. I brought up Eric Roberts before. I mean, he's been in quite a number of our movies.
But your super chimp,
Abraham,
yeah, he doesn't show any glow. Well, what do you think accounts for this discrepancy?
And it's still, I pinch myself, here's this guy's been he's such a Hollywood icon,
Yeah, Pope of Greenwich Village, Best of the Best. He's been in a lot of great films.
A lot of great films, and his attitude is so wonderful. Of I just want to act, and I don't care what the film is. Just get me in front of a camera. And then during Z Nation, we had so many amazing actors do cameos in Z Nation that I'm floored. I mean, it's cameo side of these actors I grew up with. What's also exciting is to find real actors, and I mean, they're all real actors, but I mean, people that have been in the business and are passionate about it, and almost don't have a day job. They're like, a breath away from that because they're making it or they have made it. It's the energy is great, and of just being surrounded by a lot of creative people. It's and not just in front of the camera, but behind the camera too. A lot of really, really star athletes in that regards. And these films do not get made as quickly as they get made on their own. I mean, the crews are insane and wonderful and very, very talented. So that's also great when they get their break and they move on to the bigger things. It's great. I've always looked at the Asylum as a teaching hospital. So I think we teach them how to try and kill already a dead person, but it's a teaching hospital, and so we get a lot of newbies and people that are just kind of starting out in things, and that's great too. It's all great. It's
Well,
fun.
it sounds like you're a dream maker. You remind me very much like Roger Corman doing films, and you have a lot of the same actors coming in, and you're making memorable movies. I mean, if anything, it's funny. I actually interviewed a couple of months ago one of your actors from Meth Gator, Vanessa Tamayo, and it's fun. And you hear the experience. And I asked her about it, and she said it was so quick but so professional. Like the production people, everybody was on cue. And if anything, anytime you're doing a business, just to hear that everybody's doing their job, they're doing it the best they can, they're putting all of it in, even the actors, doesn't matter what the content is, people are completely vested in it, that says a lot about them, but also the company that employs them. So I think that's certainly a testament. David, as we start winding down a bit, what is your favorite part of the day? Or if you had a favorite thing that you enjoy doing as a CEO and co-founder, what's one of the things that you really enjoy doing? It could be something that's daily, or it could be a certain task that you enjoy, but what really hits your sweet spot?
Oh, goodness. I love reading a good script. That's doesn't always happen. I give copious amounts of notes, but when it's a really good script, it's like taking a nice, hot bath almost. I mean, it just feels so good. I love watching really good dailies, and that's kind of the footage that you're shooting during the day. My favorite time used to be on the set, but it seems to now be more, staying here at the computer, just watching these things and reviewing these things, and kind of being a manager from afar in a lot of ways. Though I love being on set too. I just get in trouble when I go on set. Being on set's not good for a producer, because usually I'm bombarded with, can we have more money? Can we have more days? Can we have this then? Can we do this? Can we do that? So it costs me too much money to go to set, but I do enjoy going to set. I think it's more rare for me to answer the question. It's just of what don't I like, about it, because it really does check a lot of boxes for me. This business that I created with my partners, and because it's really a custom made company. I mean, we made it with what we like to do, and how we like to do it, and the process of how we like to get it done. So if there's something that I don't like about something, then we kind of fix that, or my partners don't like it, then it's fixed, in a way that makes it make sense. I mean, there are things we could always do better on things, but for the most part, I don't really have a problem with my day-to-day. And my day-to-day starts at 8 in the morning and ends at like 2 in the morning. So it's a long day, but they're all fun.
If you could look at your whole career, I know this is a hard one. This is, I work as a researcher as well, so I'm always digging deep. If you look at your whole body of work, all that you've done in the industry, and you were able to give advice to someone, what would be a couple of takeaways that you've learned that you would impart to someone else who's looking to maybe replicate something similar to the Asylum?
Ooh. There's so much to answer on that. I'll try to whittle it down here, which is, don't say no to opportunities that come your way. We started off, we just like to make movies, but we didn't make our first movie until like 5 years into the company. We got distracted with a lot of other things, but those other things allowed us to make movies. So try not to say no. Know your limits, but at least your moral limits. I mean, if someone offers you to do a porn, you don't want to do a porn, don't do a porn.
Yeah.
But for the most part, trying to say no to opportunity. The next would be to, you really got to love it, because a lot of hours, and I haven't learned how to, say no, and I haven't learned how to make my hours disappear, even though I have a family and whatnot. But make time for that. You're going to miss life a lot if you just make your movies. And understand also it's a collaboration of things. It's not an auteur medium, at least not what we do. It is a film that involves other people in collaborations. And so you're going to be dealing with a lot of people. And so get those skills, down, because you're going to need to know how to communicate. And how to get what you want across, and then also how to listen to other people and know, how to filter that and how to make it work or not. It's not about the ego. It can't be at this stage. It can be if you're working off your iPhone and you're a crew of one person and you are the only investor. But if you have other investors, you have responsibilities. If you have other crew, you have responsibilities to, make sure that they're happy on the set too, and around what you're doing. Don't steal. I know that sounds weird, but you're making a movie with other people's money, and so respect that. And we made our first film, and on profits on that, we made the second film. We didn't take all that money. We gave it back to the investors. They made money. They were happy they made the money, and we were able to make the next film. At a certain point, we started to cash flow our own movies, and so we don't have any investors in our company, and haven't for 20 plus years. And this just kind of happened. It's going to go fast. I'm old now, so it's but when you're in the thick of it, it doesn't seem like it'll ever end in a lot of ways. So enjoy the ride as much as you can. I'm a guy who's very ambitious and focused a lot on my business and always wanted to be in the film business. And I've mentored people and said, don't do it right away. Go and explore the world. Go join the Peace Corps. Go do something. You're young. Find stories, tell stories. Don't just live in your bubble. I didn't do that, but it's something that I regret not doing. And also understand that when you're in a relationship, because some of you hopefully are, that is a lot. That's great, and enjoy that. And there's a lot of divorce in this town, and a lot of unhappy people because they married a spouse that doesn't understand the business, and that's going to be tough on you. So but relationships are very important. And at the end of the day, you may have a couple films, but if you have a lousy family life, you're not going to be happy. That's probably a big thing. I could say from where I sit, we made it work. I married an actress that understands, the schedule, and hopefully our kids won't write 2 horrible books about us. But it's been a great ride, and hopefully for them as well too, on the opportunities that they have been given and whatnot. But I stopped directing in 2009 because it was too time consuming for me as a director. Because for me, a director kind of just jumps with both feet in and doesn't let go. So it's one of those things. I was away for 6 weeks and came back and said, I'm never doing that again, because we had 2 young kids at the time, and I'm like, I don't want to be away from the family. And so I just jumped into producing, and have enjoyed it ever since. So now the kids are older and whatnot, I might go back to directing, but it's you have to find your lane on this stuff. It's a tough business, so try to enjoy it.
Well, I think those are words to live by. David, would you like to plug anything before we sign off?
Well, I would say that I'll push the Asylum movie channel as much as possible, because we're on about 15 different platforms, and they do really well. And I think it's if you want to see a lot of Asylum content and you're wondering, where do I find it? Pretty much everyone has them, Asylum movie channel, or they'll have most of our library on there as well. That's kind of about it.
Well, David, thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy man, so I really do appreciate it. Everyone, Mortisect family, please check out The Asylum. Thank you so much, David Michael Latt. Guys, don't forget, please like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell for all new notifications. And thank you, Tim and Astrid on the other side of the board. We have a lot of really great crew at LMC Media. And thank you to Matt Sullivan and Dina Schumacher. Guys, thank you for coming down the rabbit hole with us today.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.